Get around all this interference. You can't use the S5 manifold. So we have to go down.
Yeah.
Custom built manifold.
Yeah, definitely have to go down. You can use the same shape as the S5, but with the flange further down, and drop the whole turbocharger.
So forward and down, basically.
Well, yes, absolutely. Once we go down, we'll have clearance between the runners, so that will no longer be an issue. And we really need to drop about 1.5 inches to be below the oil metering pump.
Right.
But I can stick my hand between the turbo inlet and the chassis, and the turbo inlet is still 1 inch inside the chassis, so we can go down as far as I want. That'll give us an immense amount of clearance in the back for a downpipe, and in the front to have a proper ductwork for an air filter. As it is, we could put a screen on here, and a lot of guys do that, which is perfectly fine. But you know, for ultimate protection to the turbo, you definitely want to have an air filter, regardless. In fact, once I put that inlet down here, I have all the room in the world to come up with a duct.
Right.
As it is, it fits. S4 manifold, bored out S4 turbine housing. With a Holstead HX35 or HX40, which have a massively large compressor housing. That's what makes them so efficient. You could run something a little bit smaller. You can run like a 60-1, which has a 3-inch inlet instead of a 4-inch inlet, and don't have this issue. I mean, there's a zillion different options, but at this point, this is, you know, if you want to do it with salvage parts, whatever you can get, this is one damn good option, because these HX35s or 40s go for dirt cheap, under $400. Then with the manifold that I'm going to go ahead and build and make to offer it with a kit as an option, they'll be able to use any T3 or T4, and we'll put it way down, and that way we can have, you know, proper ductwork and a air filter of any kind, maybe a K&N sitting here, maybe a gooseneck coming up and facing forward, or even coming straight up to the hood for a cold air induction. It's a million different options.
Yeah, because we were thinking about opening up the hood anyway for airflow, right?
Exactly. But it fits. And you know, the idea here was to prove the concept that it can be done with salvage yard parts without spending an arm and a leg, or doing the abortion that people do of placing the turbocharger on top of the radiator, which is like, you know, I guess they didn't go to school for that one.
Well, if you're going to use the Renesis engine, I guess that was part of the deal, right?
Just drive it as it came.
Yeah.
Are you rolling? Well, as you can see, we've got the HX35 turbo bolted into an S4 turbine housing with an S4 manifold, and we got plenty of room. These turbos have an extremely large compressor housing. That's what makes them so efficient. They don't generate a whole lot of heat, and they're designed for extremely high pressure ratios. Even with the diameter of the compressor housing, which is larger than a Turbonetics T70, we still have clearance between the runners and the intake manifold, and we've got more than the height of my hand space between the turbocharger and the chassis. Have about a finger's thickness between the turbine housing and the chassis right here, using the S4 manifold and the S4 turbine housing. We could run like this, no problem. The only interference issue that we have at this point is that the oil metering pump is covering about a quarter of the turbocharger's inlet. One simple solution, although not the most elegant one, would be to simply put a mesh screen in the inlet of the turbo, like a lot of people do. All the young guys that are looking for maximum power don't even want the restriction of having an air filter. So that's a possibility. Not the most elegant option, but you know, it's there, it's working, and it fits. At this point, in keeping with the essence of having a true OEM quality installation, I think we're going to make our own manifold that'll accept any T3 or T4 turbo, regardless of compressor housing size, because we got room, plenty of room. At least 4 inches down here, and the lower we drop the turbo, the more we're going to gain between the compressor housing and the chassis. So there'll be room for the largest, you know, a Borg Warner EFR 9180 will fit in there. It's just a matter of making a turbo exhaust manifold that will place the turbocharger further down where we have plenty of space. This RX8, as compared to the RX7 third generation, for that matter any of the previous RX7s, even the Miata, all the previous cars, the chassis and frame rails were straight through the front to rear of the car. The RX8 chassis, the frame rails are actually the width of the tunnel, then they spread out to meet the suspension and then go forward. So realistically speaking, frame rail to frame rail, frame rail to frame rail, at the engine, it's actually 3 inches wider than a third generation RX7. But at the top, it has this lip that makes it a little bit narrow. Doesn't really matter. The point is that it's tight on the top, and it's like an upside down funnel. There's all the room in the world on the bottom, and it's tight on top. So the logical solution here is to fabricate an exhaust manifold proprietary to this installation that places the turbo further down to take advantage of all the dead space, empty space that we have here that was previously used up by the motor mount of the Renesis engine block.
Looks like it's going to be able to shed heat right out the side of the frame.
Hell yeah! Right through here, all the heat is going to go right out of the chassis. I mean, in reality, it's perfectly suited for a very high output installation of a very large turbocharger. The only issue is that there are no currently available exhaust manifolds that allows you to place the turbocharger in an advantageous position for the packaging. Because everything that's out there right now is based on the third generation RX7 or previous RX7s. In the case of like what we did with the Miata, the S5 manifold would fit, doing the same boring of the housing, but would replace the turbocharger's compressor housing where the oil metering pump currently sits on the RX8. And that is one piece of hardware that I refuse to do away with, because the whole idea, the essence of this conversion, the swap, is to be as original as a OEM spec installation. So we'll make a manifold somewhat in the style of an S4 manifold, which goes down, but instead of going down in the back, it'll go down towards the bottom, and then have a flat flange so that we can basically bolt the turbocharger's turbine housing flat against the manifold rather than at an angle.
If someone wanted to, though, they could put a block-off plate over the oil metering pump and just
Yeah,
premix,
of course,
right?
of course. But
Now, if they also wanted to use a sun adapter, that would push it out another inch.
true.
But that's going to be possible with your new manifold that you're designing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of room at the bottom. A lot of room at the bottom. This is kind of like what I'm talking about, but placing the turbocharger down here. Kind of the same setup, but instead of, I mean, this manifold actually looks like this, which puts the turbo up and back. So what I'm contemplating doing is doing the exact same setup, but in front and down, so that the turbine housing sits down here, like this. It's gonna be relatively simple. Or maybe like this. We'll make it fit. Obviously, we want to make it as tidy as possible. But I, you know, being that I am going to make it and fabricate it, I'm going to take advantage of all the space we got in there. Make sure that I can put the biggest compressor housing money can buy. If we're going to do it, might as well do it right.
Exactly.
No sense going through the effort of trying it and not take advantage of all the spaces down there. There really is a lot of space. Let's unbolt this setup. Take a look at how this is going to sit.
What were you saying?
They don't exist anymore.
HE 451?
Yeah.
How come you're not trying it with the turbo housing over there?
What turbo house?
The one you had on before.
Because this is a bigger housing, I want to see the fucking turbos. If this fits, then I can put the cartridge in there. I'm not going to be able to put the turbo on it because that gear is in the way. And if I flip it, it puts the turbocharger further up, which I don't want. I want it as low to the bottom as possible. I guess I'll just it off and weld it shut.
If you wanted to use that manifold.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, obviously if I start making this manifold, then I can sacrifice that one. Here.
What is that?
This is the bad boy of all the whole sets. This is a HE 451 CW. That compressor wheel is humongous. Something like 83 millimeter on the exducer. I mean, it's just outrageous. The turbine wheel is a bit on the small side. It's designed, it's kind of like an old trim as compared to a P wheel, but the design is very aerodynamic, and there's an infinite number of turbine housings for it. Again, It's perfectly suited for the fluid characteristics of this engine. So much so that the actual turbine outlet, the turbine housing outlet of this turbo is 4-inch in diameter. Most of them are 3-inch.
Wow.
So this thing flows. This is the turbo that was on my diesel, on my Cummins, and I ran this thing constantly at 46 pounds of boost on the street. Never an issue. These turbos are designed to go 1,000,000 miles.
How much horsepower can that support in this setup?
Properly wastegated, that compressor wheel can sustain close to 600 horsepower. But the turbine housing is not big enough, so we would have to run a separate turbine. I mean, a separate wastegate. Oh yeah. Look at that shit. There's room up the yin yang. That's how we'll make our manifold.
Do you want to test the
I can't put the compressor housing on it because I got this in the middle.
Oh yeah.
I'd have to whack it off.
But you're not going to have any interference with the oil metering pump now?
Hell no. The compressor inlet is here. The metering pump is here. There's a solid 2.5 inches between the compressor inlet diameter and the outside diameter and the metering pump. You know what? Let me turn that sucker around. Put the wastegate outlet to the back, pick up the bottom bolts. They'll be slightly higher, but let's take a look and see if we have space. The other position is much further down. RX8, same frame. HX40 is a little bit bigger. This is the HE 451 CW. Compare the size of those compressor wheels. I mean, it is absolutely huge. I'll put the vernier calipers on there to show you the difference, but it's just tremendously larger. We need it down, but it would fit. What do you want? We don't need that bolt.
I don't think you're ever going to put a Renesis motor back in here.
Well, highly unlikely. That that bolt was one of the bolts on the chassis for the motor mount of the original Renesis engine, which we discard.
Getting in the way of the turbo.
Yes, sir. We have tried several different combinations, and we're going to continue until we get one that is absolutely perfect. All right, let's see if that helps out the situation. May need to. This manifold, once I make it, there's dancing room in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's absolute dancing room in there. I'll trim this up a little bit more. I really don't have to, but I will, because I'll use that manifold as a jig. Sweet.
Amazing.
Never give up.
You got room now to bring out the snorkel or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I shipped the ones that I had here to Andrew with the turbo stuff, but yeah, we can put a 90-degree elbow here. I mean, we'll have that charge line going to the intercooler. We can actually put it at the bottom. I can flip this thing around and have it come out here.
Right.
I mean, far from a final decision as to how to clock it.
Right.
But it fits.
That's the important
It
thing.
fits. The important thing was to find a combination that would fit. And it fits.
You raised up the engine a little bit more, and you still got plenty of clearance.
Yeah, we still got plenty of room on the top and on the bottom. I can probably, yeah, see, I can stick my fingers inside completely. So there's plenty of room here, and I've got another combination of holes that I can try on that manifold. So, again, far from making a final decision, but it fits. And it fits really well and really far away from the engine, so the heat, there won't be any heat soak on the intake manifold. There's massive amount of room in here for a real nice heat shield.
Right.
Let's take a look at it from the bottom. Look at all the room that we have back here. I can stick my hand between the turbocharger and the chassis. I can stick two hands underneath between the turbo and the subframe. I can stick my fist between the turbine housing, more than my fist. I actually got play, and the intake manifold. Right here, I can stick my hand underneath the compressor housing. We got room like unexpected. I always knew there was a massive amount of space. It was just a matter of being able to package it correctly. The only place that we're a little tight, and we still got plenty of room, is between the frame and the compressor housing over here. I've got about a little bit less than a ½ inch. And we've got a good 3/4 of an inch that we can move the motor over on this side. So, no big deal. No big deal. And they said that the metering pump would have to be done away with. I guess they didn't have the desire that I got, or the drive. Actually, I'm gonna have even more room because I'm going to move it to the second position that I have available. Yep.
What does that mean? Forward or up?
Back. I'm gonna come back about a quarter of an inch, maybe 3/8. Yep. One more time.